we're here on location in our greenhouse here in York, Prince Edward Island. We're not at our bulk fulfillment center. The greenhouse was just looking a little too gorgeous not to be here. I'm your host, Tara.
I'm Cody. And I'm Jeremy.
All right, some few things right off the bat, some housekeeping, if you will. We are right next to an airport, so if you hear a plane take off, I apologize. Alternatively, we have a Veseys equipment department on the same property, so you might hear a heavy tractor or a lawnmower or something go by. Also apologize.
Just the sounds of agriculture. This is right.
Absolutely. And we have something exciting that's happening today. We are doing our very first Facebook Live giveaway. And what are we giving away today?
So, in front of us here we have the Diggin' Deep collection. So, we'll go into each of these plants a little bit more in detail, but right here we have a classic coral dianthus with the beautiful pink carnation-like flowers, really strongly scented, kind of like cloves. Here we've got Brunera. It's a wonderful ground cover, likes a little bit of shade, a little bit of moisture, and I don't know if it's picking it up there, but it has these beautiful, tiny, fragrant, bright blue flowers. Here we've got Double Play Doozy Spirea. So it's a very well-known shrub. This one has got really bright pink flowers, and it will flower right through until fall. And we have At Last Rose, which we featured in, I believe, our first live stream, called At Last because it has all of the scent and beauty of an old rose with the disease resistances and vigor of a hybrid. So when the breeder found this rose, he said, "At last," and there is the name. And last but not least, we have this Little Lime Punch hydrangea, which is one of our best-selling items of all time. It's a color-changing hydrangea. Definitely check it out on Veseys.com because it is a beautiful flower, pinks and greens, hence the name Little Lime Punch. So this collection, if you pick this up, it saves you about 40% of what it would cost if you got in any of these individually. And as Tara said, we're going to be giving one of these away today at some point during the stream.
I feel like I get the best deal here. I have these dianthus right in front of me, and the scent is just amazing. So
Wonderful.
I'm gonna keep these over here for me.
Partway through the live, we're going to ask a trivia question, and the first person who can answer that question in the comments is going to win. Now, there's going to be lag and kind of buffering. You might have to go look it up. So the first one that we see hit the comments is going to be the person who wins. So we'll wait for some questions to come in, but we do have some email questions that I have right here. So Sarah wants to know, how do I know when my rhubarb is ready to be harvested? Very timely question.
Maybe we'll let Jeremy handle this one. I know you're doing lots with rhubarb this year.
Sure, yeah. Rhubarb is one of my favorite plants to grow. My dog is called Rhubarb, so that's a little bit of a hint. Rhubarb is great because it's one of the first crops, if not the first crop, that you're going to get in your garden. It was very important in Prince Edward Island because it was the first bit of vitamin C that islanders could get after a long winter. Other places in Canada, I'm sure too. It's very iconic. So, to answer the question, anywhere from 7 inches to around 15 inches long. The width of the rhubarb, that can kind of change depending on how old your plant is. A common question we get, and I may have gone over this in a video that we did, but a common question we sometimes get is, my rhubarb has been growing for many years very well, but now the stalks are kind of long and spindly, and they're not getting those nice thick rhubarb stalks anymore. It's totally normal. It just means the plant is a little old. So in the fall, when the foliage starts to die back, you can dig up that entire clump, and it will be like a big orange root ball with different eyes, which are where the leaves will start to grow. And as long as, and you'll cut that into chunks, as long as that chunk has one of those eyes, it will produce a new, healthy, strong rhubarb plant. But you treat it like a new rhubarb plant, which means you plant it, you fertilize it, or add a lot of manure, bone meal. They're very heavy feeders. They like good drainage, so put it somewhere where it's not going to have wet feet. And don't harvest it the first year, just let it grow. And then the second year, you can harvest to your heart's content.
Right. And I think a good indication for rhubarb is that color is not an indication of when it's ready.
Yes.
Usually, the darker it gets, the more over mature it is. You want usually a lighter color when you harvest.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what if your rhubarb is staying like a white color and it's not pinking up?
That would be a good time to harvest it.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, as Cody said, the color it can mean a few different things. But a lot of people think, you know, the red rhubarb is the best. It can be true. There are some varieties that are nicer when they're red. Canada Red is a good example. But there's lots of very delicious varieties that aren't red. And I think, Cody, you're trying forcing rhubarb this year, are you?
Yeah, we're trying to force some rhubarb. So we, just take a big bucket or a big ice cream tub and you black it out, tip it upside down over the rhubarb, and you're kind of just forcing it to the ground. So the rhubarb's searching for the light, still thinking it's coming up through the soil, can't find it, and then when the bucket's finally kind of coming off the soil, you'll take it off and you have blanched rhubarb right here.
Yeah, it's very tender. It's not as fibrous. It's a lot of people say it's very sweet. I haven't tried it yet myself. I'd love to try, so I'm looking forward to stealing some of yours when it's done.
We got a question in the comments. It's from Annie. She says, do we collect all the rhubarb stems at once, or is it best to leave some on the plant?
You always want to leave something on the plant just so the plant can continue to grow and photosynthesize. Typically, at that second year when you're harvesting, you only want to harvest 1/3, then the third year 2/3, and then I wouldn't go beyond that for harvesting.
Yeah, exactly. If you think about, like with most plants, every leaf is kind of like a big solar panel. And so if you're a home gardener and you have a rhubarb that's been there for years and years and years, it's a very strong root, and you can keep picking it every year. A lot of the time when people are growing it commercially for rhubarb production, they will let the rhubarb grow for 2 or 3 years without picking it at all, and and they'll let all that energy go into the rhubarb for 2 or 3 years, and then the year that they harvest it, they will harvest almost everything. They will get the best quality rhubarb from there, but then that root, it probably won't be harvested again. They'll take everything off it, and then they'll have other rhubarb that they'll be starting. But yeah, that's usually how it's made in commercially when it's being cultivated.
And both Sarah and Pearl in the comments said a good point. Pull the rhubarb, don't cut it.
Don't cut it. If you're cutting it and right at soil level, you're just opening a world of pain for the rhubarb plant.
Yeah.
Pests and disease can get in. You want to do a pulling and twisting motion all at once, and then that way you're getting it off a little bit under the soil surface where it's connected to the main crown, and then that's also sending signals to the plant to produce more shoots.
Yeah, exactly, and it's one of the most satisfying things to pull a rhubarb stalk. If you haven't tried it and you've been cutting it in the past, give it a try. It just, even the sound, it's a very satisfying kind of like a rubbery kershunk,
Mm-hmm.
So.
I don't know about you guys, I love tartness of rhubarb, so if I'm walking around the garden wall,
Yeah.
and I'll snap off a couple leaves and I'll just munch. I love the tartness of the rhubarb, and I'll just chew on that as I'm walking.
Do you have sugar? Do you dip it in sugar?
No, right from the plant
Straight?
stem right to the mouth.
He's
Yeah.
hardcore.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Joyce for my birthday made this rhubarb syrup, and you added it like grenadine to Sprite. It was so refreshing. It was very
Incredible.
good.
Someone should create a rhubarb soda.
Maybe
I'd be down.
you, since you love rhubarb so much.
Yeah.
All
Watch
right.
out, 2025.
Let's get another question. Clarissa wants to know, when should I cut back my hibiscus, fall or spring?
You can do it in the fall after all the foliage is dropped, but most times when you want to cut foliage off plants, the best time to do it is late winter before things start budding out, and it's also the best time to remove some of that old foliage because there's no diseases really around anymore, so you're just not going to spread that.
Yeah, I've left some of my hibiscus just to kind of mark where it is.
Yeah.
I leave just a little, not even a whole stick, just a little bit. Same with my milkweed. I just want to there it is. So then I know where I'm looking for new growth.
And the nice thing about that too is that a lot of this spent foliage makes really great winter interest in the garden. So it adds some texture and some height. Snow will gather on it, and you can enjoy the garden in the winter.
Yeah, that's both really good points, and yeah, Tara, that's a great idea, especially when we all plant a lot of perennials in our garden, and just keeping track of where that all is, so you're not planting something on top of it. And to Cody's point, it also adds some wildlife value because bees and things can live in the dried out stems over winter.
I still haven't cleaned up my yard. I'm still watching the starlings collect sticks for their nests.
Yes.
I'm not about to pick up any of that stuff. They need it. It can look a little chaotic for a little bit.
Absolutely.
Viola asks, I always break off the seed part, I assume for the hibiscus. Is there a certain time that this should be done?
You can do that as soon as it appears. that's just going to put more energy back into the plants, and you know, if the plant is going to spread, it is going to stop that too.
All right. Jackson says, I've been growing my asparagus for 3 years now. I'm going to harvest for the first time this year. Can I take every one that emerges?
Back to the rhubarb question, kind of the same thing. You want to leave a few there to photosynthesize, put more energy back into the plant. You want to take probably about a third of what you see, and then you know the year after that, take 2/3, and then just let it leave some there to keep growing for the coming years.
Exactly, and you know those few asparagus that you do leave will kind of drop some seeds, and it will help make your asparagus yield higher in later years.
Mary Ellen says, my hibiscus plant hasn't bloomed all winter. I keep it inside and it doesn't go outside. When will it bloom? And I assume she's talking more about the tropical hibiscus.
Yes, I would say so.
That's normally kept around here as an indoor plant.
Yes. So typically, if you have it outside, maybe not now, but in the next couple of weeks, after that it will start flowering. You know, that's just it's the plant going semi-dormant for the winter. It's not flowering. It's a little bit colder, not as much light, so it's, you know, it knows there's not as many insects around. It's not going to produce flowers. So, you know, maybe give it till the end of June, beginning of July, once it's outside for a bit, and then it should start to flower.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that goes for anyone who has houseplants. Once we're going from winter into summer, you can start fertilizing them now. You know, a lot of people, they have houseplants their whole lives, they don't realize that they need fertilizer, but they can definitely use it. They're like any other plant, they need more than just water and sun, and but you don't really need to do that in the winter, but in the summer you do, and you also need to increase the frequency of your watering, even if it is inside, because in the winter they're more dormant, but in the summer, if you start watering them more now, giving them fertilizer. I usually do it once a week, feeding Fridays. You know, you take a nice, like a water-soluble fertilizer, you follow the directions on the back, usually just mix a little bit into a watering can, and then you just, it's called fertigation. When you water it on the Friday or whatever day, you're also feeding it, and you'll be amazed how quickly this little house plant that sat and done nothing for years will flower. You know, it'll be like, I didn't even know this thing did flower. You know, that's usually when you get those moments, is when you start giving it fertilizer. Don't over fertilize, but yeah, definitely.
I really like the Sea Boost as a good like house plant and indoor plant fertilizer.
Totally.
Low in a lot of the macronutrients in the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, but it has a lot of micronutrients as well. So, you know, not having a lot of those other ones kind of keeps the plant growing well and tight, but not like explosive growth, which you don't want in the winter.
Yeah.
Can't recommend Sea Boost enough for the inside plants.
Yeah, exactly. We do sell Sea Boost. It's a seaweed based organic fertilizer, and I believe that you can actually also apply it foliarly. Like you can apply it to the leaves. So I have like some Boston ferns in my house, and they like really moist conditions. So you can spray down the leaves with a little bit of that, and they will take in some of that nutrition.
Something I want to add, especially now that Easter just happened, and a lot of people were buying those like beautiful in bloom hydrangeas in all the stores. A lot of these plants that are forest bloom, that are looking gorgeous for when you buy them, they are at the end of that cycle, and it will take them a while to come back around to needing to bloom again. So if you buy something and it's in full bloom and it blooms once a season, you're going to plant it in your garden and it's not going to bloom until next year. So that's kind of why it is beneficial to plant roots and whatnot, because you're going to enjoy it. Like you bought
we have some echinacea, columbine,
Columbine,
some
that's
pastas,
it. Yeah, and it was in bloom, but it's not going to bloom this year because it was in bloom when you bought it.
Exactly.
Yeah, such a good point.
All right, so we got a question. We got a few questions. We got to catch up. Oh goodness.
All right.
Any tips on growing cucamelon? I failed both years I tried, and my kids desperately want me to try again. So Isabel, I want to know, failed how? Did it not grow? Did it not flower? Did it put the male and female flowers out at different times? There's so many different ways that you can have some issues. I found when I grew cucamelons, my biggest problem was the male and female flowers being offset from one another, and a little bit of fertilizer, and they came around.
One year, actually, just like 10 feet that way, in one of our raised beds, we grew some cucamelons, and it was just like sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle through the bed, and it was just cucamelon, just a mass of cucamelons, and it was great. You couldn't stick your hand in there and not touch a handful of cucamelons.
Yeah, and they're very tasty too. Great idea for growing for kids, because you know, you just pop them in your mouth, kind of like a cherry tomato. They're just snack sized, really tasty.
Isabel said it didn't grow at all. So maybe you want to make sure that you are starting it indoors. Now is a perfect time to do it. And don't plant it out until last frost. It's not a frost tolerant plant. So if you put it out a little bit too early, that could have happened.
Yep. Keep your soil moist. A little bit of bottom heat wouldn't hurt it as well. If you can dome it to help retain some of that moisture and humidity and heat before it, germinates, that also works really well. Make sure it doesn't dry out, because if they do dry out really hard, the plants, will eventually die. They are at a really, state where, anything like that affects them will kill them. So.
Yeah, and if we learned anything from Joyce, if you wait till like the end of June and you just sprinkle some seeds someplace, they will
You will be
definitely
rich in
grow.
cucumbers.
Yeah.
They will be so tangled because they're a vine you can't reach in. She's no longer allowed to do spacing. Let's see. Jennifer wants to know what the temperature in the greenhouse is today.
I checked before we started. It was around 23. I'm sure if we had all the doors closed and the sides down, we'd be sitting around probably 30, 32 degrees.
It was 42 yesterday when we left, and when I got home, I was quite exhausted from the heat. Jesse wants to know, do I have to put blood meal down before transplanting my tomatoes?
No, you don't have to. You can, do some top dressing, and then whenever you water or whenever it rains, it'll just leach some of those nutrients to the roots.
Something I like to put in tomato holes is a little bit of Epsom salt.
Yes.
They love Epsom salt. And okay, can tomatoes and peppers be grown for a longer period of time if grown indoors versus just outdoors in the garden?
So yes, we actually have some down in our store right now. There are some tomatoes and peppers that are just starting to flower. I would say it's harder if you have a full-grown plant that you've had outside for the summer and you're trying to bring inside for the winter. That plant's probably going to go into a dormant state, and then it will take a while before it starts to flower again. But you have a little bit of practice in that, eh?
I do. You can bring them indoors. If you give them the proper light, they should transition pretty well. They might drop some leaves and drop any fruit that's on there. But you can transition an outdoor plant into an indoor house plant all year round. You just got to make sure that you remember that there's no bees, there's no wind, so you need to pollinate the flowers by either tapping them or shaking the plant to get that pollen to fall and germinate it. Pollinate it. There we go.
Yeah, and something about that, I think it's in Canada or in North America, our growing zone, a lot of plants that we think of as annuals are perennial, where they come from originally in their country. So if you ever want to see something really cool on the note of how long-lived can a tomato be, Google tomato tree. There's in Disney, basically, they have this tomato plant, and the stem of it that is almost a trunk now. It's about this big, and they have it basically trained all across the inside of this massive glass greenhouse, and it's many years old. So with the right conditions, anything can be inside and live very, very long.
So what I'm hearing is we're going to go to Disney, but we're going for the tomato tree, not for the ride.
Absolutely.
And we're paying for it because it's research.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
this is work related.
Well, in Mexico they have like pepper trees, right? They do the same thing. They can withstand a lot. They'll go about 3 or 4 years before they kind of die out. But I mean, I just can't even imagine.
It's amazing.
No, Tracy asked about the cucamelons needing bottom heat. That's just to germinate them, to help them get going if you're having trouble germinating cucamelons.
Once germination happens, you can kind of cut back the watering so they're not staying so wet all the time. Take away the bottom heat, take the domes off unless it's in a very drafty window. You can keep that on just to kind of keep them a little bit warmer, but for the most part, once germination happens, you can take that all away.
All right, Kathy says, why won't my carrots grow? Is it the soil? So Kathy, I'm going to ask you some questions. Are your carrots not germinating at all? Are they germinating and then they're not going past seedling stage? Are they tiny after a couple of months? Carrots not growing could mean many things.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that Tara's right on. Like, is germination happening? Yes or no? If not, it could be that they're sown too deep, sown too thin. Birds could have eaten the seed. It could have been bad seed, seed that wasn't maybe stored properly, or older seed. Carrots can be very can take a long time to germinate sometimes too. More than a week. So don't be surprised. And when they do come up, the cotyledons are very, very tiny, almost hair-like little things. Now, if if you're growing them and you're just getting the tops, but you're not getting any roots, it could be that you've sown them too thickly. We all have done it. We've sown really, really thick, and we get all these seedlings coming up, and we think, wow, this is going to be a ton of carrots. But really, they need the room in order to grow. So if you have sown too thickly, make sure you thin. You can eat carrot tops, so it's not a total waste. But basically, the more space you have between your carrots, that will dictate how big your carrots are at harvest.
And then it goes a little bit further, what your soil type's like, how much nutrients are available in the soil. Is it a raw seed? Is it a pelleted seed? Like, that makes a big difference too. So it can be a whole number of things.
Yeah, totally. Do you have wireworms that are eating the seed? I have seen this in the field. They sow and there was no seed at all. And I mean, that could be it too.
Did any of you think that when you became gardeners, you'd also have to be a detective as well?
It's funny because I'll be like, what's wrong? And be like, well, let me ask you 40 questions. Kathy says they're not germinating. If they do, they stay small. It could be nutrition in the soil. If you're doing raw seed, maybe switch to pelleted. If you're trying pelleted, maybe switch to raw. She's a more clay type soil.
Okay, if there's some pretty heavy clay, they might be rotting as well if the soil's staying really wet. Especially last season, it was so wet. With a heavy clay soil with all that moisture, I wouldn't be surprised if the seed just kind of rotted after it germinated.
Yeah.
Add some organic matter to your soil. It's the single best thing you can do to your soil every year. Add, compost manure, whatever you have, and then once you sow your seeds, make sure they're staying well moist and well watered until it germinates.
Yeah, totally. And in Prince Edward Island, we have a pretty high clay content in a lot of our soils. And usually, what people will do here when they're growing carrots is they'll have a bit of a mound, and then you grow them on this mound. So what that means is if you do have poor drainage, it's going to be a little better because these mounds are effectively acting like little raised beds. The drainage is a little bit better, and also when the root is growing, it gives them more room to grow, and the soil that they're growing in is less compacted than if you were just growing it in the straight ground.
Okay. So Shelly wants to know, can rose bushes be cut back at this time of year?
If you really want to cut back your rose bush at this time of year, absolutely. This would also be a good time to cut back any sprouts or runners that might be coming up as well to kind of keep it a little more controlled. If you're going for neatness, you might be removing a lot of flower buds this year. You'll get a little awkward haircut maybe on top or on the sides where you're removing them. So it's best to do those things first thing in the spring before bud break, and then the plants can kind of rebound from there.
We did one last year. It was later than this last year that you and Nathan did the rose bushes, and they still flourished.
Yeah. So I guess that would be the follow-up is like, are you cutting it back because you want to give it a little bit of a tidy, a little bit of a prune, or are you cutting it back because it's really overgrown? If it's really overgrown, you could probably get away with doing it now. And if there's any branches that are diseased, damaged, if you have any branches that are crossing, you could get rid of those at any time, just because removing them will long-term help the plant health. But yeah, in a perfect world, you want to prune these things regularly before bud break, as Cody says. And if it's very, very overgrown, you can cut it like 30 centimeters from the ground, straight shot, just saw it right through. A lot of people think that roses are very prissy and fiddly and hard to keep alive. They're very, very easy to keep alive. They're very tough plants.
You have a rose, you have a rose for life.
Yes, you do.
And your neighbor might get one too.
Yeah, so pick one that smells good.
Barb wants to know, do we sell heirloom plants? And we do.
Yes.
There is a way to filter it on the website. If you go to, like, say, tomatoes along the side, you can select heirloom and it'll show you all the heirloom varieties we have. Nicole says, my Borsalino beans only reached about 5 inches. Yeah, 5 inches tall last year. I got very few beans. Any suggestions?
Might be some nutrient problems going on. It sounds like the plants are kind of stunted in their growth. Maybe some cold weather maybe kind of nicked them. Could be a pest issue. Could be a number of different things. But start, with your soil. Add some organic matter to your soil this year. Plant your seeds. Water them well. Take care of them. And then, hopefully they will come back better this year. If, there is a chance of frost, cover the plants with a light sheet or something like that. It sounds like it was either a nutrient problem or there was another reason the plant stunted, whether it be frost, pest, or something.
Yeah, maybe it's not getting watered enough, that would definitely stunt them. Or if they're not in full light, most vegetables we're kind of going to assume that your garden is in a place that gets full sun. If it doesn't, you could expect that the yields are going to be less and that the size is going to be less as well.
But just know that we struggled a little bit with our beans last year too, because we got a really cold snap after we planted them, and then it was so wet. We actually had to replant them. So beans are really good that if they're not doing well, just plant more.
That's the nice thing about them. They, 2 months, for some of the beans, 55 days, and you got beans. So
yeah, totally. It's great for succession planting in that way too. When you plant something and then 2 weeks later you plant the same thing again, so you're having a continuous harvest until the end of the season.
Which is better, because then you're not having to do like, what do I do with all these beans all at once?
I always plant way too much, and I always have that problem.
Viola wants to know, do you have a corn variety that is close to the Seneca Horizon variety?
I'm not super familiar with that, but if you send that question to customer service and just tag in the subject line "digging deep" and then your question with my name Cody, they will forward that to me. I will look into that, and then I will get back to you with the our best recommendation.
Yeah. Elizabeth says, I have a clipping rose that has been looking sad. I think it needs a better spot in the yard. Would moving it now be okay? I don't mind if it doesn't bloom this year, but it was big. The main stem completely died 2 years ago. I thought it was dead, and I noticed a new growth this spring.
Yeah, we're getting to the late end of when you can move stuff, but you can still move stuff now. It's still cool enough during the days that it's not going to stress the plant out when you disturb the roots, but not so hot that like if we get a heat wave, it's not going to just cause the plant to bear. So a little bit later into the season, yes, you can still do it now. Make sure it's watered really well, and make sure you give it a good helping of bone meal and some organic matter on the hole.
Yeah, check the weather, see when the next worst day is going to be. Like, don't do it yesterday.
Yeah.
Yesterday was too hot.
Yeah.
It'd stress it out.
Yeah, don't let it dry out. If you're moving it, don't dig it up and then put it out in the sun and then go for lunch. You want to get it in the ground as quick as you can, or if not, put it in some water, like a bucket of water.
That's a great point. Before you're transplanting anything or moving anything, prep your site, your holes first, so it can just be it, or it can be out and then in, and there's no sitting around waiting. So
yeah,
that's a great point.
On any plant, and this goes for when you're planting anything bare root as well, it's those really fine little roots, those really really tiny ones. Those are the roots that actually take in moisture. Those are the feeder roots. The big heavy duty roots, they're basically there to keep the rose stable. So when you have anything bare root, be it a rose or any woody plant, those little fine roots are the ones that you cannot have dry out. Those can dry out in under a minute if it's full sun, and that's going to affect the vigor of your plant and the health, and it can maybe not bounce back from that. So keep it moist.
All right, Kathy says, what is a good mix for planter boxes? Last season, my box's dirt ended up being very dense and hard.
So I always like to start with the base, which is usually some soilless media, which means peat-based soils. So like Lamberg, Pro Mix, like we carry, those would be a good start. And then from there, add some compost and manure, kind of mix it all together a little bit, and check your pH and that too before you plant. And then from there, you just add a little organic matter every year, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, and if you're just going to use one bag of soil and not build a soil like we do here for our containers, make sure you're getting a soil that's good for containers. It should say on the bag that it's good for containers. Otherwise, it compacts too much, and it's meant to be like topped up on your garden or added to something like that. It needs to have more vermiculite in it, more peat moss.
Yeah, I would say after organic matter, if it is a really heavy soil, you can add some perlite as well. That would also help lighten it up.
Says, thanks, Cody. Okay. I think we caught up in questions. We can do some email questions. We'll do the giveaway very shortly.
I'm excited.
I'm very excited.
This is amazing.
Can I win the giveaway?
You cannot. No staff.
Okay.
I didn't even say that, but no.
All right.
You might not even know the answer.
This is true.
You might not know. All right. Nicole says, I planted a bunch of fall bulbs and none of them come up. What should I do?
So you can start, depends on what bulb they are, but if this is tulips, daffodils, which are already up and well into their growing period, kind of dig around where they're planted, see what's happening there. Did the bulbs rot? Did something take a big bite out of the side of it? Just kind of find out what's going on there.
Were they crocuses? Did chipmunks eat them?
Chipmunks is a big one too, yeah.
Totally.
It's such a hard question because you can't just say what do I do? It's like, well, what happened? Are they missing? Did they not come up? Did they not bloom? Are you in Vancouver and you don't have enough cold days to make them come up?
If you're in Ontario, the answer is almost always squirrels. Or Quebec, you know, the black squirrels, they love to eat bulbs. They're supposedly toxic, but they love to eat them anyway. Don't ask me why. I know that in my own garden, a lot of bulbs didn't come up just because we had a lot of flooding. We had an early thaw here and ton of water on my property. And some bulbs cannot deal with that, and they'll just rot. Things like daffodils and tulips. You know, iris versicolor and these Siberian irises, they love that. You can plant them in water, but yeah, as they say, right plant, right place.
We have a love-hate relationship with the chipmunks here.
Yeah.
You know, we'll be in the greenhouse transplanting, and one will dart out in front of you, and they'll have a bulb in your mouth, and you're like, that's really cute, but also where did you get that from?
His name is Chippy.
Yes, all the chipmunks are named Chippy here.
All of them. But like, we have given in to the fact that we can't grow crocuses here. The chipmunks are going to take them. There's too much trees and wildlife, and like, we're done. Like,
Basically,
no
the crocuses that we do have are the crocuses that we have, and we can't really add it.
Yeah, and they're probably like a certain variety that we don't even know that this particular family of chipmunks doesn't like. It's
Yes.
like me, like people in cilantro, right?
Yeah.
Probably tastes like soap to them.
Yeah.
Elizabeth says there's a giveaway. Yes, Elizabeth, there's a giveaway. We're giving away a Digging Deep collection. It's a bunch of plants valued at over $200. We're going to ask a trivia question, and the first person to answer it right in the comments is going to win it. And we're going to ship it out hopefully today. Did we miss Canada Post?
It might be shipped out tomorrow, but
It'll still get to you pretty quickly, though.
Yeah.
It's going to be very quick. We're not waiting on this. You're going to be in the comments, so we're going to get your address right away. Don't put your address in the comments.
Yeah, we'll contact you when we'll get all the information.
Yeah. And just look at these plants. These are ready to go in the ground, people. They want to be planted, so we'll get them to you as quick as we can.
My son bought is that lilac, you think?
It could be.
Lilac or lilies?
That's lilac. It's
Lilac.
French for lilac.
Okay, thank you. And it refuses to grow. What is the problem? All right, Patricia, tons of questions for you. Is it not getting bigger? Is it staying the same size? Do the leaves look healthy? What are more questions?
Yeah, I would ask how old it is. You know, it's a woody plant. They're not going to shoot up really, really fast. You know, like the classic Syringa vulgaris, just like your classic garden lilac. You know, it's a very long-lived plant, but it does take a while to grow. You know, mine, we put in 2 new lilacs that were very small, and they're only slightly bigger this year. If they still have a lot of green growth and leaves, I wouldn't worry too much about it. That being said, I would wonder, is this a place that gets a lot of water? If so, that will possibly stunt the growth. Is it getting enough sun? You know, you should have probably at least 6 hours of sunlight a day, and any new tree, shrub, whatever, make sure you're watering it, especially those first couple years. After a while, you won't need to even look at it again. Lilacs are very, very low maintenance, but you know, if it's a very dry area where you are, don't hesitate to water, especially if you've had a dry week.
Yeah, Patricia says it's the same size. So yeah, we probably fertilize.
Was this your first, or was this your son's first year planting it?
He said bought it about 5 years ago.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so there might be some nitrogen or some nutrient deficiencies going on there. You know, depending how big it is, maybe it needs a little rejuvenating cutting, which does help lilacs quite a bit too. So probably one of those two.
Yeah, definitely. It could be something to do with the, as Cody said, a lack of nutrition in the soil. So a good fertilization can't hurt. You can buy stakes specifically for fertilizing woody plants. Those are really handy. You just kind of hammer them into the ground, and then when it waters, it slowly releases some fertilizer. And then, you know, depending on how much space you have in your property, it may not be possible, but try moving it. You know, if it's been 4 or 5 years, might be time to think that maybe this is the ideal spot for this plant. If your garden is small, I would say make sure it's well fertilized and well watered.
That was one of the weirdest pieces of advice I got from working in a greenhouse. They were like, these plants haven't been growing for a month, and my boss would come and be like, just give them a little kick or move them someplace else.
Yeah.
And didn't fail. Anytime we'd move them, just like even 10 feet away, and they would just miraculously start growing.
Yeah, can be as simple as that sometimes.
Kathy says my hydrangea stopped flowering for 3 years now. What can I do?
It sounds like either there's not enough nutrients in the soil or there's too much nitrogen in the soil. I know a lot of shrubs are planted in the middle of lawns with a mulch circle around them, and then people will fertilize their lawns, and lawn fertilizer is really high in nitrogen, which is great for lawns, not so good for flowering shrubs and plants. Actually having that much nitrogen will stop the plants from sending out flowers, and basically that's just the plant's response to being like, life is so good right now, I don't need to reproduce, I don't need to pass my genes on, I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to enjoy it.
It's going to be a kid forever.
Basically.
Yeah, and a good question, Kathy, is it putting out a lot of nice green leaves? Like, is it just not blooming? Are you getting foliage on there?
And it could be down to sunlight as well.
Yeah.
Maybe, in those 3 years, maybe the trees that are around it have grown more, so it's not getting, that 6 to 8 hours of sun. Maybe it's only getting 4 or 5 hours.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I made a video, I think I made it today, about pruning the hydrangea over there. And I took off so much, and you can't even tell.
Yeah.
But there was, the ground was covered. Okay. Mark, I never deadhead any of my flowering plants and shrubs. Is there anything I shouldn't deadhead?
Shouldn't deadhead? It depends. If you want a plant to spread like poppies, you don't want to deadhead those. Especially because some of them are hardy annuals where, it's the seed that survives the winter, not the plant itself. So by deadheading them, you're essentially stopping that production cycle of seeds.
Yeah, exactly. And, a lot of the time for tulips and daffodils, that could be one example of something that you maybe don't want to deadhead. The rule of thumb is if you have, say, a daffodil or most spring flowering bulbs, if you break off the seed head after it's done flowering, then it's going to put all that energy into that bulb. So if you planted a daffodil, then all the energy from the leaves that it gathers over the summer is going to go into the bulb, and the flower is going to be bigger and better next year. If you don't break off the seed head, it will put the energy into the seeds. It's going to put the energy into more little bulblets underneath the ground, and that's going to mean more daffodils. You'll have that one plant will have less vigor next year, maybe a smaller flower. But if you're trying to naturalize your property, you're trying to get more daffodils, then yeah, that's an example of when you maybe shouldn't deadhead.
And one plant you don't want to deadhead, milkweed.
Yes,
Don't
very
want
good
to.
point.
Yes.
Well, you should before winter comes.
Before winter comes, but you don't want to do it before it sets and releases seeds.
Yeah.
Yes.
And one thing a lot of people that don't know about is live heading, which is a thing, especially with something like with sweet peas. When you grow sweet peas and it goes to flower, once that flower goes to seed, that plant is done flowering. However, if you cut off the whole flower at the stem, before it goes to seed, it will continue to flower. So you can have a sweet pea flowering into the frost, or it can just have one big flush of flowers and then stop and go to seed. But yeah, it's really amazing how long-lived they can be if you practice live heading.
Dianthus is another thing that you might be able to force into a second bloom. Not every variety, but it's so worth it to try because they're so pretty.
Yeah, awesome cut flowers. They smell amazing.
Louise says, my forsythia has lost a large branch, so its shape is unbalanced. Can I do a severe pruning? You'll never get rid of your forsythia.
You can do some regenerative pruning to kind of bring the shape back, but it's going to be years of doing that over and over, basically.
Yeah, it'll take such a hard pruning and come right back.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who's successfully gotten rid of a forsythia.
Yeah, and I think if you want it, if the purpose of your pruning is to get the overall shape back to what it was, then yeah, I think a hard prune is probably what you want to do, or else it'll always kind of grow a little lopsided. But yeah, they're very hardy plants. And, you can cut them down pretty low, and they'll just respond with new growth. So that's probably what you want to do.
I would wait though, because I don't know where you are, but here on Prince Edward Island, all of our forsythias are in their glory.
Yes.
And I remember why I love them. They're I can see one right there through the greenhouse.
Yep.
Yeah, so beautiful, so good for the bees. It's a very good point. Early spring. Wait for early spring. Give it a good hack back, and then you'll still get a good flush of flowers.
Okay, we got 2 questions in here, and then we'll do the giveaway. First question, is there a trick to growing hollyhock seeds? I never have much luck.
Trick to hollyhock seeds. Well, we started some here, not this previous winter, but the winter before. Started them pretty early in the winter. I want to say middle to end of January. We did some bottom heat, keep the soil moist, dome them. They eventually popped up. Gave them lots of light, about 12 hours a day. Once they got big enough, we up-potted them probably at least once, if not twice, before they were ready to come out for the summer. So you don't have to do bottom heat. They are a perennial, so they will respond better to cooler temperatures than with heat. But
Yeah, exactly. And if the issue is that you've planted them and they're growing but they're not flowering, that's normal. They'll flower in their second year. So we've got a big tray at home of hollyhocks right now. We didn't find them particularly difficult to propagate from seed. But yeah, we're not expecting any flowers until next year. And there's truly massive flowers. Some of them are over 5 feet tall, 6 feet tall. So well worth the effort. A classic cottage garden.
We did have hollyhocks bloom last year. It was our variety, wasn't it? It was our variety. It is supposed to be second year, but of 4 different varieties that we trialed, only ours bloomed last year.
And I would say probably because we had it started so early that we got that first season.
Veseys quality.
Yes. You treat it well, it'll treat you well. Okay, well, answer Barry's question, and then we'll do the giveaway. How should I start my morning glory seed? Should I use a wet paper towel overnight?
Some people do that, others don't. I'm on the fence of I put the seeds in and they will eventually grow. Seeds, outside of natural selection are a natural thing and they will do their thing and grow. Just doing the paper towel just helps speed it up a little bit essentially, but it's not necessary.
Yeah. Last year I grew morning glory 2 years ago, and last year I had morning glory growing in the same pot that I had it in, even though I switched it out. I was like, oh, look at you.
It's definitely something you want to keep under control in your garden. A great candidate for deadheading because it is something that will run wild through all your plants if you let it, which some people love. But just keep that in mind. It is a bit of a pushy plant.
And I am looking forward this summer because we have a lot of bindweed here on the property that we're trying to eradicate. And when I was a kid growing up, I called that morning glory.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people, when they think of morning glories, they think of those little pale purple flowers that they see, and they're very similar. But bindweed is going to kill your plants. Morning glory is not going to kill the plants it's climbing on.
Yeah, if you have morning glories that are continuously growing in your garden and growing over things year after year, you got bindweed and you need to get rid of it.
All right, so we'll do the giveaway. So it is the first person to answer the question in the comments. I'm sorry if there's a delay or a lag. It's an easy one. I'm even going to give a hint. The question is, we've been growing with you since how long? A hint, it is written on the front of our catalog. You can't answer it. It's written on the cover of our seed catalog. Growing with you since how long ago? Come on, I'm so excited. I just can't wait for people to go and get it. Okay. We probably have a lag too. Do you know the answer?
I do, but I'm going to keep it inside.
Oh, we've got someone who...
Woo!
Oh!
Woo!
I think Tracy, our social media girl who's answering and liking all the things on the back end, I think she's going to be the official declaration. Ooh, look at them all coming in.
Whoa! Look at
Someone was just a little fast. Were they right though? Were they?
Yeah, we've got maybe one wrong answer. Oh, but he corrected it. He knows. He was too quick on the fingers. I'm very excited. I love doing this giveaway, but we're really excited that we can offer this same collection at 40% off for you guys. We picked this collection, so I hope everybody enjoys it. The winner will contact you, get your address, and we'll send it out to you tomorrow. We'll pack it up and get it out tomorrow.
Exactly, and whoever was playing the trivia and they didn't win the collection, just go to Veseys.com and in the search bar look up Diggin' Deep Collection. You get 3 of our best-selling, in our opinion, most beautiful shrubs, 2 amazing perennials, and you get 40% off the price. So it's almost half off with this Diggin' Deep collection. So highly recommend checking that out. These are all wonderful flowers. The perennials are very useful, very hardy,
I'm going to
smell
buy half of
amazing.
this.
Yeah,
Because I didn't win.
me too.
You're not allowed to win. I'm very sorry. All right, so this question is a good one because I have seen it on TikTok myself, and I have a different opinion than what everyone's saying on TikTok. So Michelle says, They've been saying to disc bud the small buds under the main flower on your peony. I have never done this. Should I? So what that means is your main stem puts out one big bud, and then there's two smaller or three on them. Do you recommend removing those?
I would say it's whatever your preference is. So do you want one really big lush flower, or would you rather have more flowers, maybe not as big over a longer period of time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that the point of the disc budding is because peonies can get very top heavy, or indeed they can break, they can get really bogged down in the rain. It really just depends what you're looking for. If you want that really show quality peony that's going to look very nice in a vase all by itself, sure. I love the look of a English cottage garden where everything is spilling into the paths and there's just petals and everything's a big mishmash. So I let my peonies do their thing. But you should absolutely do that if that's what you're looking for in your own garden.
I do like these trends and that more and more people are talking about gardening and sharing the tips because it's getting more conversations going.
Totally.
And that person the people that are saying this, they may do cut flowers and maybe that's their advice for cut flowers. But if it's been working for you all these years, why change?
Yeah, exactly. Less buds means less flowers, so I think the choice is obvious.
Yeah. The choice is very obvious in my mind. Stephanie asks, how do I stop my spirea from spreading?
Continually mowing it is the way to control it from moving outside of its area. That's the only way you're really going to control it. Either that, or you're going to, remove any flowers before they go to seed. But I think the easiest way is just continually mowing.
Yeah, totally. There's a reason why we have certain plants that are just ubiquitous in the garden, that they're everywhere. They're used a lot in landscaping because they do what they say on the can. They are high performing plants. Spirea is one of those, and it's what you'd call a bit pushy, a little bit of an aggressive plant if you're not staying on top of it. Though this one that we've included in the collection, Doozy Double Play Spirea, it's an improved spirea. It does not go to seed, and it's supposed to not send out suckers. So you get all the beauty of those flowers and that architectural interest in your garden without the aggressive nature of a spirea. So if you're looking for a spirea without the headache, Doozy Double Play is
It's a great quality to have in plant.
Yeah, totally. It's a doozy.
Okay, I can officially say that Kylie Ruby Soho Jackson won the collection.
Woo!
Yay! I'm so excited to send that out to you. What ingredients are? Oh, this was an email question that we had someone email us. We answered it to the customer already, but I thought it'd be a good one to do in our live. What ingredients are used in your pelleted bolero? What is the coating made out of? Does it have any gluten?
So typically, the pelleting is just clay. Outside of that, we're not going to know what's in there. It's a trade secret, kind of like in the famous, burger sauce. No one's ever going to know the ratios and the ingredients.
Yep.
So yeah, it's clay. Outside of that, we're never really going to know.
Yeah, unless it's like a treated seed, it's gonna have other things. It shouldn't have any gluten on it. It's certainly, any coating is going to be long since gone before you ever go to eat your carrot.
Yeah, totally. And the purpose of using a clay coating, I mean, besides the fact that carrot seeds are really tiny, and if your eyesight isn't that great or whatever, it makes it really easy to see and to plant. So a lot of our customers like it for that reason. But also, when that clay gets wet, it's going to make sure that seed remains moist all over for an extended period of time. So it's going to extend the time that that seed is getting wet and increase the chances of germination.
Yes. And do not soak any pelleted seeds.
Yes.
It'll just kind of dissolve the pelleting, and then you're just left with raw seed, and then it just makes it harder to handle.
Yeah.
And then why did you get pelleted seeds?
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't put your pelleted seed in the cedar plate designed for carrot. If you have a pelleted carrot, don't use the carrot plate. You
Yes.
got to use the bigger plate.
And that is one of the functions of the pelleting, is to make the seed easier to handle for, us if we're doing it by hand, or for farmers if they're using like an air seeder or a plate seeder. So
Neil says, I saw your video on aronia berry. Is that aronia?
Aronia, yeah.
Aronia. How wide will one plant get, and does it need a pollinator?
So it doesn't need a pollinator, but if you have more than one, the yields will be better. So I believe it will get anywhere from 4 to 8 feet tall and wide, depending on the spacing. If you have them closer together, then it will get obviously it will be smaller than that. It's a great understory tree. So what that means is if you've got, you know, let's say you have a in the woods in its natural environment, it would be on the lower layer in the woods. So it doesn't need as much sun as a normal fruiting tree does. So it's great for growing in between trees, which is what a lot of people use it for, like in agroforestry. You might have a chestnut, and between your chestnuts you have aronia, so you're doubling the crop from the same amount of space. So it's very useful in that regard, and extremely high in antioxidants. Yeah, good juice.
Kind of like to the self-pollinating point. You know, maybe if you only have one plant, you get 5 fruit. Just an example. You only get 5 fruit, but if you have a pollinator, maybe now you get 10, and you get some on the other plants as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Are you growing any?
I'm not. I've planted about 10 fruit trees this year, but that isn't one that I've grown myself. We've only just added it in the catalog this year. So far it's been very successful, but I've read a lot about it. I've eaten aronia before, and you know, I know it has a lot of great wildlife value. It's just one of these things that people like, the wildlife likes, the birds like, unfortunately, sometimes a little too much. But if you're looking for a kind of unusual, neat, extremely healthy plant to grow, I can highly recommend aronia.
All right, I'm out of questions. We'll see if anyone gives any questions in the comments. Cody, what have you been up to?
Oh man, what haven't we been up to?
Well, your hat's very, very dirty.
It's very dirty. So this hat was brand new 2 days ago. I've been on a tractor for the past 2 days working up our field, and you know, I don't know what it's like outside of Atlantic Canada, but it's been very dry here. I was actually looking this morning. Since the beginning of May, we've gotten 14 mils of rain, which is about a ½ inch of rain. And since the middle of April, we've gotten 1 inch of rain.
Wow. And I wish I had to look back to last year, because this time last year we probably had, what, 200, it feels like?
Yeah, it's been so dry here. And basically, you know, foreseeable future, the next 7 to 10 days, there's no rain. We know we're a few steps away from planting in the field now. And basically we're at the point, let's hold off until we know there's some rain coming, because if we put our leeks, our onions, pea seeds, anything out there in the soil right now, they're just gonna bake. You know, a good indication like that is like when you have your root ball that's really wet in some really dry soil. What happens to your mouth when you eat like soda crackers?
Oh,
Yeah.
it just gets
It
more
just
dry.
it just sucks all the moisture. It's the
Yeah.
exact same thing.
It makes
Put a root-
whistling impossible.
If we were to put these onions out in the field right now with a nice wet root ball, that soil would just suck all the moisture out of them. Then by afternoon, the sun's just beating down on them and they're gone by the next day.
Yeah.
You gave these onions a haircut last week, and they have balled up so much because of it. Like, they're so happy. I don't know if everyone can see that.
Very happy onions.
Yeah.
Very happy onions.
We've been doing lots of transplanting in the greenhouse as well. Our greenhouse, you know, was only half this full a week ago. Tara, Nathan, and Joyce have been transplanting up a storm.
Look how
There's chocolate covered cherry. That's one of our coleus.
beautiful.
Beautiful.
Red Sun, this is our new one, isn't it?
This is our new one. Highly recommend this coleus stand.
Beautiful.
It just produced like a hedge that was that color. It rarely flowers. Can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, we hardly deadheaded this one last year. It was such a good producer.
Yeah.
We couldn't not add it.
Very cool about coleus, something I only learned recently. You know, my wife has a friend, and she has a coleus that she was given as a gift. She put it in a pot inside her house. It's over 6 feet tall. This garden coleus, it's incredible, and you know, the foliage is so bright and beautiful. So yeah, you learn
What else?
something new every day.
We've got Doug here. Doug is a banana. When was he planted?
So those were started in November 23rd, 2022.
Yeah, Doug's quite big. In front here, this is Jade Princess Millet. What else we got? Oh, Purple Majesty Millet. A couple dahlias.
Yeah.
We got all the fun things in here.
We've done a lot of seeding too behind the camera. We have half of our cucurbits, lettuces, brassicas. Probably next week we're going to do our winter squashes and pumpkins. All our tomatoes and peppers are down in the main building. We've basically been waiting till the transplant to make room.
Yeah.
So the next like 3 weeks it's just going to be all out.
All planting. I'm wearing my tomato shirt. I can't wait to get the peppers and tomatoes. doing. Yeah, everything behind us is display. So this is all of our varieties, all going in our display beds. We spend hours and hours and hours transplanting. The greenhouse is my favorite place to be, probably second to the field.
And I would say I would go be even on that. Like we start planning our display beds like end of summer. So come September, we're planning our display beds for the fall and the spring. So we're always like 8 months ahead of the curve.
Yeah, we're about to start planning what we're going to put in for a fall display, spring display next year. We'll plant it this fall.
Yeah.
Right now we have a beautiful rainbow made of tulips in the front bed. Just waiting for that cloud to come out.
I know. They'll eventually get there.
Tomorrow.
How's the bulb barn going?
So things at the bulb barn are going very well. We're winding down the spring bulb season. There's a couple weeks left to go. We've got some amazing sales right now. If you go to Veseys.com, you can see we've got some amazing sales on some really great products. The greenhouse, you know, is also full. It's teeming with lovely plants that all look like this. Yeah, things are going very well. And when the spring bulb season ends, then we're gonna start working on the fall bulb season. So you know, when one ends, we jump right into getting the next one ready. So once we end this spring season, we will start working on next year's spring bulb catalog and start preparing for the fall bulb season. So anyone who hasn't done it yet, definitely go to Veseys.com, sign up for a free catalog. You know, you get our seed catalog, you'll get our bulb catalog twice a year, and if you're anything like me, I mean, my summers are spent gardening, my winters are spent planning and reading seed catalogs, and ours is definitely, arguably, one of the best that you can get. Yes.
Yeah, and if you can't get enough of us, we're in the catalog, so you'll see us again. All right, what time are we at? 4 minutes. What have I been doing? I've been doing this. Cleaning up the beds.
Yep.
I discovered yesterday that I should have known, but I didn't know. Maybe, I don't know if you know. Did you know that Fritillaria is part of the lily family?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that until I had lily beetles
Oh.
on my Fritillaria.
Lily beetles.
I was like, well, what is, like, if one is up and beautiful and about to bloom, and the other one is like curved over and sickly, and I was like, what is wrong with you? And it's lily beetles, and I'm very angry at them.
And they're a pain in the butt pest because the only good way to get rid of them is to
Well, I
one
tried.
at a time.
I squeezed 2 of them, but they're flyers. They're not like a potato beetle that's just gonna like fall over and land on its back.
Yeah,
like
they want to live.
Supposedly, there's some research, and I don't know if this is true, that, you know, if a lily beetle is in distress, lets out this little scream. I think cucumber beetles do the same thing. And then everyone else is like, scatter! And then they all just fly away, and it's just, I haven't heard them scream yet. I haven't gotten close enough to hear them scream, but
It is quite impressive how you can sometimes go up to a plant, whether it's covered in lily beetles, Colorado potato beetles are one, and as you get close, and they all just start dropping as you walk towards them. So it's quite amazing that they have that ability to do that. But I just wanted to add to Tara, you've not only been busy working in the field, creating all these beautiful things, but creating some really amazing stuff for our media. You know,
It's you guys,
you
though.
know, bringing us kicking and screaming into the 21st century. You know, it's really the quality has really been obvious, and setting up these amazing live streams. So kudos.
Did you know that when you signed up to work here, that you would end up like being all over Facebook teaching these little videos?
I didn't. I was actually in the garden center the other day, and I had someone come up to me and be like, "I like your videos." So that was.
I had someone drive in today and say the same thing to me. So.
Okay, so what happened to me 2 days ago, I was cleaning up the wall bed, and this man in a truck slowed down. He was like, "Are you the girl on Facebook?" And I was like, "I am," and he just kept going. I was like,
PEI famous.
we
Yeah, I
are.
think, yes.
If you're from PEI, we're gonna be like Boomer soon. Do you know Boomer? Do you know Boomer?
Yeah.
CDC, right?
CBC.
Okay.
Like,
Oh, yes. Okay.
Weatherman extraordinaire. He's like a huge celebrity in my eyes. Anyway, maybe someday.
Maybe we need to get Boomer on the pod.
Oh, yes.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Talk about some weather, agriculture weather.
Tag
Yes.
Boomer in the comments, Beal.
He's gonna have his Hawaiian shirt on.
Yes.
He is a fan. I got my picture taken with him last summer. He came in to spend his gift card, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I was excited when someone came in to buy this gift card for you, and he was like, "I heard about that," and he was like, "Let me take your picture, and I'll send it to my."
So that episode's gonna be 4 hours long because I love talking about weather and data. So
weather with Boomer. Oh my god, he could tell us like when is the last frost.
Yeah.
When should we plant our onions?
Yeah. Boomer, we need you.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone who joined. Thanks for participating in our giveaway. We will be in York in 2 weeks for it. Will we be in the greenhouse? Will we be in the field? Will we be in our studio? You're gonna have to tune in to find out. So we'll say goodbye. You guys say goodbye. I have to very awkwardly figure out how to shut this off.
Thank you everyone again for tuning in, and you know, if you have any more questions horticulturally related, just email us at, what's the email, Cody?
Just customer service.
Just customer
at
service.
Veseys. Yeah.
Customer service at Veseys.com, and we'll find an answer for you very quickly.
Yes.
Say bye.
Thank
Bye
you.
everyone.